But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Yeah. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
On yourself.
Okay, I've got like a little intro here and kind of gives you kind of some groundwork. So the information that I share with you today is from my own personal experiences and explorations that span over many decades. And until this year, there were just a few people who were aware of my explorations. I've explored, experimented, documented, and questioned everything that has been presented to me, and I continue to do so to this day. Most of the answers that I have received are for questions that I have never asked, and the paths that I have been led to on my journey, I most likely would have never chosen at the time because they were far beyond my vision. We are all part of something much larger than we can even fathom in this or any lifetime. We are infinite spiritual beings temporarily living within the confines of a very limited three-dimensional physical body and world. I wanted to remind everyone of this before I begin describing my experiences because most of us are predominantly left-brain thinkers in our daily lives, and it usually takes a few key cues to activate our out-of-the-box thinking and listening skills that are usually in the right hemisphere. I am not here today just to share my theories, but to share my discoveries. I am not here to waste your precious time. So here are a few questions and answers to begin with. Is there really intelligent life besides humans? Answer is yes, there are. Some appear similar to humans, others cover themselves under hooded robes, and yet others are nowhere near our human form. But it's worth noting, without our human bodies, we don't resemble humans either. The second question, are there multiple dimensions besides this one? Yes, there are. And we do communicate with various ones on a subconscious level, and I will cover this in our discussion today. And number 3, where is the astral? The astral plane is right here, right now. It is layered over our 3-dimensional plane. We will cover more, but if you have any specific questions that come up, just ask. And I want to continue a little bit. Spirituality wasn't meant to be taught. It was meant to be lived, explored, and experienced by you. Spirituality is your own individual experience. If you want to look for answers, you have to look within, not without. This is a really important point to cover because there is and has been a lot of misinformation out there to misdirect people away from the valuable connection we have to our source. Anyone that tells you they have the secret is selling you snake oil. There are a few people that I've ever come in contact with in the past that really know of what they preach. And these are the people that they themselves have actually explored, experienced, and questioned everything that they have encountered. There are a lot of people that have abilities, but those who blindly follow the information that they are given or just do as they are told are fools that are being misled. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there depending on these people for information that isn't going to get them where they want to go. The remainder of the spiritual jargon is for those who use buzz phrases like how to manifest riches, to get you sucked into their methodologies that are created to keep you focused on their techniques that are a complete waste of time. Information can come from many sources: the subconscious, alternate realities, and the astral. None of these sources can be deemed trustworthy for these reasons. Everyone, everywhere has their own agenda, and the spiritual beings and non-humans are no different. The second reason is artificial intelligence. It is prevalent in our world, and it's also prevalent in the astral and many other dimensions. So we must always keep this in mind. We are spiritual beings that do not need to rely on technology for anything. Spiritual beings under normal circumstances have the ability to naturally perform without technology, but there are many beings that are not spiritual in nature, so they depend on technology to survive and thrive. We must first, in order for any being to attempt to take over human control, we must first be confined to a 3-dimensional world in 3-dimensional bodies, and then have interference installed between us and our source. Only then can we be fascinated by and convinced that we need to rely on technology to survive. At that point, we can be manipulated by outside sources. So that's kind of my intro there.
It's kind of my intro. Okay, excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, I got Michael L. Martin with us. Probably add get that on there. We'll get there. How's it going, man?
Good. How you doing?
Nice to meet you. I discovered you a couple of weeks ago, and I've been listening to some of your stuff. And Michael has 2 books out. One is the Spiritual Manifesto. Is that the one?
Mm-hmm. The Spiritualist Manifesto.
The Spiritualist Manifesto, excuse me. And then the other one is My Dark Exploration.
Right.
A closer. Tell me the rest of that title there, will you?
It's My Dark Explorations, and it has portals, glimpses, and astral.
Roger that.
And the Spiritualist Manifesto is a guide to freedom.
So let's get this out of the way. Some of the stuff. Here we go. So you can find his stuff on My Dark Explorations on Rumble. Did you say you have a YouTube channel as well?
I started one. It didn't go very well, and with all the censorship, I just went over to Rumble and bypassed it.
Roger that. I understand. And then it's for course. So there's the book cover right there. You can get his book on his 2 books on Amazon, and they are relatively a short read. But I'm interested in talking to you, Mike, because you've been doing this a while. You both of us have been around the block a little bit, and I've both combined ages. We're probably getting close to 125 years of experience in this plane of existence. So the bare minimum, right?
Yep.
So, and I like your take on things. I really do, because you're not just selling people something that they want to hear, but what is actually going on in this plane of existence and on the other side. And there seems to be a correlation with that as you talk about that. One of the things you talk about is the agenda and all that kind of stuff. So before we get into that, though, what got you into this whole notion of looking into the astral plane, portals, gateways, out-of-body experience? Because it sounds like when did you start to, you have like multiple decades of experience. So this, I'm assuming, what, 80s, 90s, when did you start getting into this?
The portal started in the early 90s. I'll go back a little bit. When I was young, I had experiences that I didn't know what they were. And since that was back in the 70s, nobody really talked about stuff like that because, there was no internet and everybody, kind of, kids did their own thing, and parents, you just followed what the parents said. But I was having what I later understood as out-of-body experiences.
I did as well in the 70s as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, these things weren't, I had no idea. So when I was in my early 20s and I happened to get I ordered a Time Life book series called Mysteries of the Unknown. I saw it on TV and I ordered it. And one of the first couple books I got, because it was like one every other month, and it had out-of-body experiences, astral projection. And I'm like, wow, what's that? So I read about it, and it mentioned Robert Monroe's book and that sort of thing. So I went right out and bought Journeys Out of the Body. And I'm like, wow, I was fascinated with it. I was like, wow, this is, I never correlated what I had as experiences I had as a kid with that, because I kind of just put them in the background. I just never thought about them. So I decided that I was going to pursue the astral projection, and I was gonna succeed. I set my mind to something and I succeed. So I tried the separation method at night, laying in bed and that sort of thing, and none of that stuff worked. But what I did read about, and I don't remember if it was in Journeys Out of the Body, but I read about becoming lucid within a dream and then going from there. So what I would do is during the middle, many times during the day, I'd set my watch as with an alarm, and then I'd ask myself, am I having am I dreaming? And I would look at something like a chair or a car and then turn away and then look back at it. And if nothing had changed, then I knew I was awake, and I said, no, I'm not dreaming. So I was doing that so much over an 11-month period that eventually I became lucid in a dream. I realized there was something in my dream that set me off, and I said, hey, I'm in a dream. And I told myself in my mind that I wanted to have an out-of-body experience. And at that point, I was projected out of the dream, and I was in the side of my house and above where one of my vehicles was at. And it was in the winter, so the night air was cold, but I didn't feel cold. I could feel the fact that it was cold, but I wasn't. But I also knew my body, and I could feel my body in bed. So I knew I was in two places simultaneously. So at that point, I said, I'm going to just absorb everything that I can so that I can, verify and write everything down. Because I was into writing about my dreams. I'd been doing that for a number of years. So
when did you start actually doing the writing of the dreams and all that kind of stuff?
I started doing the writing of the dreams probably about 3 years before that, because I'd read a book on dreams. My wife bought it for me, and how to interpret your dreams and stuff. So it took a while for me to be able to write my dreams down, because most people forget about their dreams. So what I would do is I would tell myself before I went to bed that I was going to remember my dreams. And sometimes that works, but you have to keep a book beside your bed at the beginning. So you can wake up in the middle of the night. If you wake up after a dream, you can write it down real quick. You'll forget it.
It's too much discipline for me. I couldn't do it.
Oh, I was doing it like I'd wake up
as a kid. Let's go back to, so when you were having these out of body experiences, and when you came back into your body, what were the? Because when I had them, I would be floating above the trees and out the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff, and then I come back, and I think it's good to bring this up because I bet you there's a lot more people have had this experience than they realize. And one of the things is, going back in time and looking at it, for me, I remember when I would come back from floating up above the trees in the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff, as I would come back into usually it was a realization I was floating above the trees, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, bam, and I come back into my body, my legs and arms would jerk and all that, and I'd wake up, right? Do you remember? Snap back, and do you recall having that, or did you have something after the fact
I
like
had
that?
quite a bit of snapbacks, but what the weird thing about it for me is, and this is why I didn't correlate in the beginning, I would most likely be late because we were made to take naps back then. You know, you like on the weekend, your parents would go, okay, you go take a nap. So you'd have to lay in your bedroom for a couple hours, and okay, you're not tired. So I'd lay there on my back, and the next thing I know, I'm above my body. So things of that nature, and I would never go to sleep. So the thing about it was I was making the transition, and there may have been a moment, just a quick instant of the time that I was looking at the ceiling until the time I was at the ceiling, but there was no time that I went to sleep. I was consciously awake. And this fits into what I experienced today. So what was happening, that was happening. So I didn't correlate the whole dream aspect with it when I first started having them, because it was a different scenario. I was getting to them basically from the awake state. So I was consciously moving, and my body was obviously not able to move at that point, but my separation was almost instantaneous. But it was in the awakened state after just a brief moment of consciousness slip. Now, and what I've discovered is we have a physical body, we have an astral body, which is the spirit, and we have the soul, which is on the mental plane. So you're in three places simultaneously. Those bodies are always on those planes because they vibrate at that same level of frequency. So we're always there. Those bodies are always there. So when you say, well, I astral projected, your astral body, your spirit disconnected from your body. And if you have an astral projection, then your consciousness switches over to that body. It goes from the physical to the astral at that point. So what you're doing is, and this is what I was doing without even trying, what would happen is I'd be laying there looking at the ceiling, and then there'd be just a brief moment of losing consciousness. I'm back while my astral body separated and my consciousness went with it. That's why there was a brief moment of transition. So what's happening is when you're going on astral projecting, your consciousness has to disconnect from your body when your spirit body does, and has to connect with it. And if you're going on the mental plane, then from that point, it has to connect with the soul, and then it has to come back. So what we're doing is we have a conscious connection, and then we have with one of our bodies, one of our three bodies. So we're moving our consciousness from one to the other. So that's what an astral projection or when you travel in your soul on the mental plane.
So, you talk about the three facets of us, which are the physical, the spiritual, and the soul. And the soul is the mental. Mm-hmm. And if I was mistaken, I heard you say once that's the realm, that's the plane in which if we have any ability of escaping the shit show that we're in.
I don't think so. I think, I've never been in that frame of thought. I do know that it's farther out, but I do believe it's beyond. Okay, so we're right now, we're stuck within our three body system. Right. Now, when somebody projects in the astral, they think, oh, I finally got out, I'm free. No, you didn't. You went from the prison to the prison yard. Okay. And the mental plane means, okay, so when your astral body disconnects from your physical body, it's got a cord between there. And then in between your spirit body or your astral body and your soul, there's another thin cord that they connect. So what we're doing is we're in prison with those three bodies, no matter which one we reside in. It's just that the other two aren't on physical earth.
but you're still confined to them. Now, I do believe, my personal belief is, if we are going to be free, then I believe the only way is to be free of all three of them. And it's just our consciousness. And our consciousness has some mass, but it's the same mass as the ether. I mean, we have to be free of all three of them in order to be really free, in order to be out of the system. That's my belief, because that is the only constant in our system. If we go from we're in the physical, we obviously are trapped here. We're in the astral, we can only go so far there. And we go in the mental, in the soul, we can only go so far there. But what we have in common with all of them is we're moving our consciousness, which is the us of us. So I do believe our consciousness is the only part of us that we could take with us. We don't want anything else. I don't want anything that's going to be trapping me within that three body range, or within the astral, or within the mental plane. We need to be outside of all of them, because they're all controlled places.
So, which I agree with you on that. It seems to me that we're in this trinity, if you will. Isn't it interesting? We saw this triad, this trinity, this thing, this we're trapped in, and we have to somehow, Mark from Forever Consciousness Research, is that what it is? Or Conscious Research, something like that. Anyways, you said you didn't know about him, but he talks about it along with others, that the whole idea is just to acquire our own personal autonomy, our own sovereignty. It's the ability, and I think you bring it up too, is this ability of some of the strategies. And one of the very first things is to be able to say no to all these constructs, to say, I'm not going to be part of it. And tell me if I'm going the wrong direction. But it's this whole idea of saying, you know what? Screw your religion, screw your politics, screw all your systems that are out there to ensnare us in the physical. And once we're able to do that here, then somehow that translates into the astral plane and then into the next level, right? In other words, we have to become our own true essence or true self, which means that we are, it's shedding away, if you will. It's abandoning all these constructs that other people, other entities have given us, whether in the physical or in the spiritual. Does that make sense? You agree with that?
And I go through it in the spiritual manifesto. I try to lay everything out about disconnecting from what I call the game. And the game is basically all the drama of physical life, because they get you in the game, you're enthralled in it, and it's like a spell or a drug. Everybody has to have their news. Everybody has to know what's going on. And, I don't mean to take anything away from anybody. I just mean to get down to the truth. Now, when I first came out...
What about this? How about this? So this is how I see it. And we come in and out, right? And we have to know the reality of this situation and the horror show that it actually is, in order to then let go of it. The illusion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The only way that you're going to get rid of the illusion is, and I've been working on this for some time. Now, my intention with this is not to just tell everybody what our situation is. That's not my intention. My intention is to lay things out. But my intention is, my end game, my goal is to find the way out, to map the way out. I started it with this Spiritualist Manifesto by how to prepare yourself. And I've got another book working right now, and I keep my books very short. It's short to the point. It gives you a little bit of a background, enough for you to understand what's going on and then what to do. And
but what about the realizing the show that we're in, right? The illusion that we're in, I call it the giant shit show, and that it's all a big giant deception, and it's not something to fall in love with. It's the ability to let go of it. Does that make sense? To say, what? I don't need this. I don't need this place. I don't need this reality. I don't need the television. I don't need all the crap that's on the internet. I don't need the crap that's going on with my neighbors. What I need is to find myself.
Well, it's about understanding that, yeah, everything that's going on, we can say, yeah, we know, but understanding and realizing and just knowing are two different things. So what we're doing is we're on a level, and it's very difficult to even understand from my viewpoint, because what happens is, let me put it this way, we're multiple levels of deception and manipulation. Okay, so on the groundwork level, you got, stuff at work, you got stuff with your family, you got the other things that happen in your life, so you're dealing with all that, so you're juggling your life and all the roadblocks that happen here. Above that are in the astral, in the spirit world, you're being manipulated, being deceived. In your dream state, you are being programmed not only on the earth, you're being programmed in the astral. Without even knowing it, it's constant. It's a constant stream. And let me give you an example. People will learn something, or they'll say, yeah, I need to practice that, because then that way I can kind of help separate myself. Well, you will begin to forget. It will be pruned from your memory. It will be pruned from your life, because what happens is the system and the way it's built and the way you are being constantly programmed on a physical and a psychological level will prune these from your memory and from your life. And it happens all the time. And I've seen it in person. I've seen it happen. What is going on is a psycho-illogical psyops is happening to us on a 24/7 basis. And the farther and the harder you work to get to the bottom of it, the harder it works against you. So people that experience astral projection and that sort of thing, that are looking for ways out of the system, are going to meet more insulated roadblocks and that sort of thing. So as you begin to separate yourself, you begin to get more insulated from your source and from what you're looking for. So as you get deeper into the game gets more difficult. And you really don't understand the levels of difficulty until you experience them, because then you begin to get frustrated. Then you begin to get, you question yourself. And that's the whole purpose behind it. The ones that are creating this whole manipulation are centuries, are eons beyond our conception. Now, not on a spiritual level, it's not beyond our conception. But we have been dumbed down and pre-programmed for all these years that we're trying to get ourselves up out of the hole. And as we climb a couple feet, then it becomes slipperier, or there's, something that goes against you. So it's such an involved system that it's really hard just to understand and get a grasp of how it is. And even when you do, you begin to lose sight of it, only because of the friction that's gone against you. You don't even see it coming. I mean, let me give you this example. You'll go into a dream. Mm-hmm. Say there's someone you hate in life, somebody you just can't stand. In that dream, they'll come to your house and you'll be like, I really don't like this person, but you won't say anything, or you won't do anything about it. And then when you wake up, you'll be like, wow, how come I didn't do anything about it? Because you're being manipulated. Because they're showing you that they can even bring the person that you hate the most in life and put them right in front of you in your own house, and you're not going to do a damn thing about it. Because that's deceit. That's manipulation. And what it is it's like them saying, just try. You think that you're getting somewhere? Look at what we can do, and you don't do a damn thing about it.
You sure not talking about my ex now? She's probably feeling the same way about me. But yeah, and it's true. We don't seem we don't seem to have the capacity to do much about anything of what's going on around us. We can't even seem to organize about anything at a social level. Unless,
really,
unless it's, and I'm going to say something. This is what I say. Unless it's pure evil. If it's pure evil, then somehow humanity can organize itself to do that horrendous things against each other, against this creation, against everything. And that's a reality that we can't just obfuscate, just ignore that that's not what's happening. You know what I mean?
I admire the other side because their ability to fulfill a plan, they plan and they execute. And then everybody works together, which on our side, nobody works together. It's hard enough if you, even with something that happened within the last year, anything happens, even if it's a big event, you maybe get, okay, so a big event, and I live in Phoenix, and we maybe get 2,000 people show up at the first day. After the first day, you maybe get half the next day, and then after that, within a week, you're down to 5 people. I mean, people just will not, they don't stand up for themselves. They don't stand up for their freedoms, and they're sure in the hell not going to stand up for the freedoms of the generations that come behind us. I mean, we're responsible for the generations behind us. The people that were before us, the generations before us, paved the way for us. They might not have been aware of everything that's going on, but still, they paved the way for us. So if you're not going to stand up for just yourself, stand up for others, because there's not a reason why you would want others down the line to suffer by losing all their freedoms just because you just didn't want to get off your chair or make use of the information that you have available to you.
It's shocking. You know, listen, back in 2019, 2020, I was one of the very first people. I know this because I pay attention to shit. There was only a couple hundred of us probably in the whole internet, small channels warning about the eugenics program, the global eugenics program, the scamdemic, right?
Right.
You know, now they got all these bigger names and they're all like all these followers and all that. But we made it, I know I did, and I'm sure they as well did, a conscious effort to fall on our swords to warn people what was going on because I knew what was going to happen. I knew what it was all about. And all you do is just pay attention to your own personal lives and the people around you and how they suffered from the foundation of the system that starts with an M that you're not allowed to say the word without getting striked or taken down. This M, it's with a coal in the end of it, and it's the coal is for culling. I believe it to be the case. But regardless, so you say the truth, you are, and you start speaking the truth about anything, and the censors. The thing is, I think when people, the way this creation is set, people are like, oh my gosh, they're censoring us. People, they've always been censoring us. This system has always been censoring us. You just because we have this mind hive apparatus called the internet are recognizing that you're being censored, but you've always been censored. You've always been lied to. You've been lied to and deceived by all the different the constructs that man has made for you, and the entities that inspire these men have made for you to keep you from ever knowing yourselves. You know, it's almost like this. Tell me how you see about this. It's almost like we're trying to get back to the 5-year-old boy or girl, the entity, who we were before, you know, Sunday school and preschool and romper room and Sesame Street screw the hell out of us. If that makes sense to you, there was a time of our purity when things were, and we are much more aware of what was going on around us. We were much more, you know, we're connected with that, the baby bunnies in my front yard, the wildflowers, animals, the birds, blah, blah, blah. And then the system and we do it to each other. We're doing it to ourselves. Our parents did it to us. Their parents did it to them. The pastor, the priest, the rabbi. I mean, it's like it's like where it's like, I can go on and on, but you see where I'm coming from?
They were following their programming is what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so basically you know, it just keeps going, it keeps feeding itself, and it, you know, you just get caught up in it. And like I said, it's like a magic spell on your mind, because once you're involved in it, to step away from it is very, very difficult. But
it is, because I'm going to tell you something. I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is going to be my conversation. Usually when I interview somebody, it's because I can relate with that person. I'm not interested in numbers and clicks and having a following. This guy knows what he's talking about, so I need to talk to him, right? And since we're having this conversation, I figured I'd share it with you, with everyone else, and encourage you to have this conversation with me. So it seems to me that what has happened, like for me, I spent the past 3 months just 24/7 focus on Gaza and Israel and the horror show that it is and all that. And now I can't let go of it. I literally cannot let go of the addiction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's rightfully we should. I mean, I understand why people care about, because it's evil, it's awful. I mean, we want to do something about it. But this evil, this awfulness, it really grabs a hold of all of us.
It consumes your attention. It consumes all of you. And what I tell people is, and this is why I call it the game, the only way that you can distance yourself from the shiny, because you have a shiny object here, which is the war. Then you have another shiny object over here that is digital money. Then you have another shiny object. So what they're doing is they're releasing news on a continual basis to keep you focused on their game. So what happens is, as you're focusing and worrying and everything else, feeling helpless, that's the intention. They want us, because we're spiritual beings, we're based in energy, we emit vibrations. And when we're depressed and we're worried and all that, we're emitting low-level vibrational frequencies, which is what they want. And as we're doing that, and we're on a computer network, basically. Every one of us has a MAC address. So as we're releasing those frequencies, our MAC address is connected to it. It's being absorbed by the what they call the records, and that's how they have an ability to track everything about us. So as we're doing all that, we're emitting all these things. They're saying, okay, they're staying in line. Yeah, they're staying in line. Yeah, this is what we want them to do. But what happens is, at a point where you decide and you force yourself to not be absorbed into their system, you step away, you stop worrying about the news, you stop worrying. It's not that you don't care. It has nothing to do with you caring about it. But you have to care about yourself more, so that you distance yourself away from that effect. Because once you distance your way, like stop taking that drug, you will start to see things from a different light. You will start to understand that it's just a game. It's like being in elementary school. If you got a bunch of kids,
dude, it's a sick fucking game, is what it is.
Well, it is.
But it's really sick fucking game, and
they keep upping the level. They keep making it worse. They make it, they keep upping it and upping it. That's the point. It's the shock factor on you. And the only way that you're going to save yourself is by distancing yourself from it. You'll get to a point where you say, I don't want to hear it. People talk about it. I don't need to hear it, because I understand where they're going with it. I don't need to know the particulars of what's going on in our world right now, because my whole intention is finding a way out. Finding a way out for everybody. So the only way I can get other people out is to be standing outside of it myself, to figure out a plan in order to tell you.
I did that, Mike. So I disconnected, right? I mean, I was this truther. I got so just so poisoned by everything that I discovered that I just needed to totally disconnect. And so what happened was, so I stopped. I just started raising guppies for a while, and I just wildflower gardens and just being a father and all that, right? But then there's another side to this. So once we disconnect from the shit show here in the physical, then there's all the things around us in the astral plane, like the things that are behind me that I'm showing you, these dark entities, if you pay close attention. So what happens in 2017, I standing next to a Crow Indian medicine man, I see two freaking things they call Bigfoot crawling up a ravine. One got 15 feet in front of me. And I don't care if anyone believes me. I saw it. That Crow Indian saw it. And many others saw something just like that. And it was a very shadowy, energetic being. It wasn't the flesh and blood thing. That's part of the psyop too. It's just endless lies. So once they realize that you know that they exist, this we're going to bring this up to you because that these entities know that you know they exist. So then once we deal with the physical bullshit, the charade, and it's the horror show that is, then we have to deal with what's between our ears, what's around us, what we're seeing, we witness and encounter, because it's like it's a multi-layer attack on each and every one of us.
The higher you climb, the more difficult the climb begins. And let me give you an example. And I believe what you said, you saw it, because, and I'll give you an example of something.
I've seen it and filmed it. You're looking right behind us. Right. Some of the things I filmed, you just.
Yeah. I didn't film this because I was actually driving. This was a year and a half ago. My wife and I were in our motorhome, and we're heading up to Laughlin, which is got to go through the desert to get there. So we're driving, and it's just a bright sunny day, and we're driving, and we get towards this mountain pass, which there's a ton of them out there. And it starts to get a little dark, and I go, well, it's probably going to rain. So I turn the windshield wipers on, and it gets real foggy. And this is like 2:00 in the afternoon. So, normally it's bright and shiny. And we get into this mountain pass. My wife goes in the back to make something to eat, and it just gets really dark. And I'm like, I hope it's not a monsoon or something. So we're driving into it. And we get into this pass. So we got a mountain on both sides, and it's kind of shaped like this because they cut the road out of it. So we get in there, and I look ahead because it's real kind of foggy and misty, and I see these pockets of water. Now, when I say pockets, I would say if you had a bowl that was maybe a glass bowl like you have in your kitchen, but it was a 6-foot diameter, and say take 4 or 5 of those in midair, the water was sitting like it was in a bowl in several sections far ahead of me. I could see it, but I couldn't understand what it was. It's almost like invisible hands were holding this water in pockets. And as soon as I got towards there, all of a sudden the wind blew really hard, and all that water hit the side of the motorhome and tried to knock me off across the other lane, which is down the ravine, which I was kind of preparing myself. So I got out of there. My wife's like, what the hell happened? You hit something? And I go, no. And I explained it to her, and she had no idea, and I was like, well, I saw it. I know what I saw. And, but when you're going to experience just weird things like that, weird anomalies, you're going to see it. But that tells you that at some point you're going against the grain at a higher level. You're going to meet up with different things. You're going to experience new things. But what you'll have to do is you just keep going on. It could have happened to anybody, but it happened, and I just moved on from it. For me, I just chalk it up to experience. I've had a lot of things happen, and I'm the type that doesn't back down, so I really don't give a shit. It's like, hey, if I'm affecting you that much, then good, I'll keep going, because that's just kind of how I am. I just don't care if somebody doesn't like, I'm
getting there, but I'm at the point where I'm really pissed off. That's what I am.
You'll get pissed off.
This is a total violation at every level.
It's everyone's a violation.
At every level. And every one of us is going through this. It's like a violation at every level. So when I'm, close my eyes, and it's like, and I'm just try to find a silent space of some peace. Sure enough, there's all these freaking entities are there, and if they're not there, then there's going to be this lattice, this thing, this like a grid, this thing that's going to be there. It's always something interfering with light and everything, and it's just like you get to the point you're just like, this is such a fucking. I'm pissed. That's what I am. I'm pissed at whatever. I'm pissed at whatever brought all of us to this shit show that we call the world, Earth. They should be held accountable for what they've done to us.
Well, yeah. Well, the only way anybody's going to hold anybody accountable, and like I've told a lot of people, I said, don't rely on some alien entities coming and saving us, because
No,
nobody's
there's no
nobody,
justice in this realm, and there's no justice
if we
in
don't
the astral
if we don't
plane.
do it for ourselves, we're never going to get out of here. So if you
That's
get
where we're
aggravated, if you get aggravated, convert that energy into a positive way and move on with it, because I've seen enough in many years to understand there's a lot out there. And what I want to say about a lot of these entities that appear and don't appear, or we can't see, I believe they're there all the time. They're on a different level, but we just can't see them because our eyesight is so limited in the visual spectrum. I think we see less than 0.5% of what actually is out there. So we miss more than we see.
0.05% is what it is, or something like that. It's really
it's so minimal that we miss more than what we see,
which is part of the soul trap matrix that we were living in, right?
Yeah.
We're put into, or we're hijacked, thrown into this meat suit, and people will say, "Oh, how wonderful the human body is." The human body is like the worst design that was ever made in this creation. We have 5,000 freaking genetically flaws just alone. Not to mention the fact, all the other ridiculous things, whatever designed us, because we don't fit in. And I don't care. People say, "Oh, it's evolution." All the evolution. I mean, I can see in the lower life forms, quote unquote, lower life forms. But when it comes to the meat suit that we're housed in, it's a fucking mistake. It's a disaster. It's a disaster.
It wasn't designed to be perfect. It was designed to be flawed, so that we have to live within the confines of what we have. And if if we get far enough, that we'll probably just get somehow that we can get affected through different ways. And then, look through all the people that are so sick now. It's, things happen for a reason, and I don't believe in the karma bullshit for 5 minutes.
The karma thing is a total lie. If karma was legit, bro, if it was legit, story. How's come the worst of the worst are always constantly being rewarded in this realm? There's no karma.
Right, the whole metaphysical field for years has been infiltrated. All this BS stuff that's been put in us, telling us we're all one, all that stuff. No, we're all individuals, and that's why we act as individuals. We are not part of a hive mind. And when I say,
so we're also suffering from forced amnesia. Right. If it is reincarnation, which seems like it's possibly, we don't remember anything from previous lives. Therefore, we're not learning anything. People say,
"How would you learn?" Right. How would you learn if you can't remember? And how many times you need to die to learn to die? And how many times you need to go to war? How many times you need to fight with somebody? How many times? Right. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's a dog and pony circus.
So, and we got a brain. It looks like the brain with two hemispheres, and it's like a giant reduction valve that keeps us from remembering anything, thinking clearly. Just really being able to really navigate this place properly, communicating properly. We can't seem to communicate. I'm sure just you're hearing things, I'm hearing things. We're not hearing each other clearly. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's the design. We can't even hear each other and fully and clearly of what's being said. I mean, the ears aren't right. The everything's wrong. I think that the important thing is, to me at least, to come to that realization to say, you know what, this is just a giant shit show. So then goes back to the question, and the most important question, all this, and people think it's really selfish and all that, but it's not, because if if somebody could figure out how to escape this shit show, and we could share it with other people, the actual answer, that might be the most important question and answer that humanity could ever receive. So how do we get out of this shit show?
Well,
how do we escape it?
Well, the first thing I tell everybody, obviously, is disconnecting yourself from the game. That's the first thing. That's the very first thing. And then you have to understand that it's a multi-level game. Now, what I tell people is very important. Now, don't ever misunderstand when I say we're a conscious. That does not include the subconscious. The subconsciousness is a completely different field, and the subconsciousness is actually part of the hive mind. The consciousness is only us. The subconsciousness is part of the hive mind. So what we need to understand is we're just that one part, but the subconsciousness is the overseer of all of us, and it has to do with control of our dream state and state times when we're not really paying attention. So there's a lot of things that is integrated into us besides our physicality, our psychological, our emotional. Everything is intertwined into this system. So when we begin to get control, we're constantly fighting everything on every level because it's all going against us. So like I said, getting out of the game and becoming conscious no matter where you are, whether you are awake or whether you are asleep, and being in control. Whether you got to live every night in a lucid dream, in a conscious dream, that's what we should be doing, because at that point we have gained control of our nighttime. So our consciousness needs to access our spirit body at night, and we need to be in control of what's happening. And once we can control ourselves and everything during the day, we need to be able to do that at night as well. Because what happens is, if we can be so easily or deceived while we're in dream state, then we still haven't achieved what we need to do. Because if they can fool us in a dream, they can easily put us into that state at any time and just walk all over us. So learning how to say no or remembering to say no, that's never going to work, because the deceit is far deeper than we could ever imagine. And that's why we need to constantly be aware. And the only way you can do that is through practice.
So basically, but it seems to me that part of this is the constant rehearsal of dealing with that which fears that we are afraid of.
Well, you can't be afraid of anything, because what happens is your emotions. Okay, you can't let your feelings and your emotions dictate your life. Once you understand that your emotions and one thing you can look at is, people say, well, that person made me do it. That person triggered me. That person. If you allow other people to determine your feelings and emotions, then they are controlling you. You don't want
feelings and emotions are a part of the deception. That's part of the problem.
Right. But you can control your own thoughts. You can control your own emotions, and you can control your own feelings. So if somebody walks up to you and says something like you're an asshole, whatever, and you get all offended by it, you just allowed them to trigger you. You allowed them to be in control of your emotions. You have to be in complete control of your emotions and your feelings at all time. So when you are either in the sleep state or in the waking state, you need to be 100% in control of yourself. Now, sometimes you might get a little upset or irritated or whatever, but you need to be in control of that, because if other things and outside sources are controlling your thoughts and feelings and emotions, then you are not in control. You have to be in control of everything. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to take control of yourself. And you have to consciously be aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling all the time in order for that to happen.
So there's this innate programming within us that has this yearning desire to have personal sovereignty, to control of of who we are, right? To know who we are, to manipulate what's around us, and to say, listen, this is not what I want. I want what I want, not what you want me to want, that kind of thing. So this whole thing about personal sovereignty, that you see how politics hijacked it, religion has hijacked it, the New Age has hijacked it, war has hijacked it. This whole you can see this whole thing of, it's like, I'm not saying it's not a good idea that to be, say, a prepper and off the grid and all that kind of stuff, but that ain't the fucking answer. It's
You
just
can't run from this. You can't run from it. You have to face it at some point. You know, you can keep moving and keep moving. Eventually you're going to run out of space. Eventually it's going to catch up with you.
So it talks about in the scriptures to be like a child, and also it says to be still and to know that I am, or God, or whatever. What does that mean to you? Because apparently,
I do believe we have a source. We do have a source. I can't say whether it's a God. I don't know what. We do have a source at some point. But if you're looking for a hero and if you're looking for a God, you better look in the mirror, because you are, and we are the only people that are going to say.
Not Donald Trump. What do you mean? Sure, it's not Donald Trump.
You have to be your own hero. You have to be your own God, and you have to be your own savior, because there is no one, not even your best friend, is going to stand up for you most likely when it comes down to it.
Your spouse.
People need to rely on themselves.
Your spouse might have that. Your spouse can't even be there for you for this quest.
Well, the problem is if your spouse doesn't get control of themselves and get out of the game and they choose to do their own thing, then you're going to have to act for them as well. You know what I mean? You're going to have to act in their benefit. And if at some point they decide they don't want to do what you're going to do, that's fine. But you're going to give them the option. You're going to make it available for them. That's my whole thing. Not everybody's going to think like I do, and I understand it.
You can't control them, nor can you.
No.
Nor do you have a right to determine their destiny. So
Exactly. So what I'm doing is I'm making the information available to anybody who wants to utilize it and work on it and make it better. That's great. But I understand there's going to be people that choose not to. Think about it this way. Say if an alien race did come down to Earth and they said, we're going to save you guys. And, so they take over and they do all this stuff. And then 85% of the population says, oh, we liked it better the way it was. You guys are a bunch of jerks and we don't want to follow you and all this kind of stuff. So if people don't come in line, then you could save them and they wouldn't even know it. They think you're screwing them over. So, you have to do things on an individual basis. Everybody has to stand up for themselves and work for themselves. And if you work with other people, that works fine, but don't depend on anybody else. If you want to depend on somebody, depend on your dog or your cat. They're not going to go against you.
So what, by you saying that means don't count on me, Michael H. Adams, and don't count on Michael L. Martin. We don't have the answer for it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. What I'm saying is to follow through with disconnecting yourself and being in control. You do that for yourself. You can't do it for your wife. You can't do it for your son. You can't do it for your daughter. You can't do it for your mom. You can't do it for your grandma. You have to prepare yourself and make the information available to whoever wants to do that. But when the time comes and you've prepared yourself and other people haven't, and you try to show them or prepare them and they don't want to accept it, then you have to do what you have to do. What I'm saying is disconnecting yourself from the system. So it's not a one-step process. It's a whole entire process. It's a process of disconnecting yourself to the point of your consciousness, understanding and being aware of what everything is happening to you, whether you're asleep or whether you're awake. So if somebody pulls the wool over your eyes and we're all manipulated to the point where everybody's in a fog, you will still be conscious enough to make decisions because you have prepared yourself. The only way we're going to prepare ourselves to the psycho-illogical process is to become psychologically in control. Mentally, we have to be in control of ourselves. That's the only way we're going to get out of this. It's not a battle. It's a war, but it's a psychological war. Because if you can't remain conscious, no matter what is presented to you, then you are going to fall right back into the trap and you'll be recycled forever. What it is, when we get to a point, whether, I don't know if it's after death or what, but we get to a certain point, we can choose for ourselves what we decide to do. And at that point, no illusion is going to be able to pull the wool over our eyes, because we have become psychologically prepared for whatever happens.
So part of this illusion would be like people waiting for Jesus or Allah or Yahweh
it's not that,
or
because,
Moses or.
okay, say when you die, I don't even know if this is true. I'm just making this scenario up. Say when you die, it's like a dream state, okay? And you've got a lot of activity going on, and say you're in like a dream state to where everything they could potentially mention to you, you'd say, "Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, I'm all with that. Yeah, I'll do that. No problem." You know, when in reality, if you were conscious, you'd say, "I'm not doing that. There's no way I'm going to go along with that." The only way I know what's happening. We get to that certain state, and they said, "Yeah, we looked at it. We really need you to do this, and you really," and you're going, "Oh yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, I agree." Even though we know better, we're in that state of illusion, and we go along with it. Like like we allow the politicians to make decisions for us, even though when
Presidential election is a perfect example of it.
Right. So here we are. We're acquiescing all of our control to these beings, and we're just throwing ourselves back into the recycling bin. So the only way that we're going to be able to put a stop to it is by getting ourselves out of the illusion, out of the fog. And the only way we can do that is being conscious of it. So no matter what mental level we're at or we're in, we're thrown in. So let me give you an example too. So I started having the portals, and I through the daydream state, I was able to access what I call glimpses. What happens is when we go into a daydream state, which is why you're awake, I noticed when I was driving home, I had an hour commute each way every day. And I'm sitting in the car, and I realized there's something in the daydream state. There was something there, but I don't know what it was. So over and over and over for about a year, I kept trying to figure out what was going on, what was happening, till I finally realized that subconsciously there was a portal experience within the daytime in that daydream state that I was having, that I would just show up. There would be somebody talking to me, giving me information, and then it would come right back. And this could be like that, but you would hear a whole conversation. But I couldn't retain the information, because what happens is we come back through the veil. It's like taking a hard drive through a magnetic field. It erases all the information. So I was finally able to bring back information from that. And I realized I had to take my consciousness where my subconsciousness was, and then bring it back, retaining information. We all do it on a daily basis. We just don't realize it. I was lucky.
Yes.
I was lucky enough to catch it. I caught it, and then I started studying it. So I pretty much figured out a way to do it every time. I was able to be successful. I have tons of records of them. Most of the information is not really super helpful, but it led me to certain conclusions. But one of them was, here we are. We're in that system, and nobody knows it. Nobody remembers it. Why? Because they are in conscious control of it. When I brought my conscious there, when I was able to project it there and bring it back, then I was able to remember it. But it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of practice to do that. So if they can cover stuff up during our daily lives that we don't even know, our subconscious is communicating with it, but our consciousness isn't aware of it, how many other things are there that they can do? If that's what happens after you pass away, you'll never even have a chance of saying no. You'll never have a chance. It's all about creating. It's about getting through the barriers, and it's about exercising your ability to expand your consciousness and to project it and bring information back and to become conscious no matter what situation they may put you in.
So it's like this thing about mass hypnosis, that it's clear that's what we're going through, whether in this realm or the other. We're all being not hypnosis. What's the word I'm trying to say? Amnesia. Mass amnesia is what it is.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing. But somehow we have to acquire enough personal sovereignty and totally thoroughly convinced that we are not going to be. It's going to be total non-compliance at all levels. That's what.
Right. But in order for you,
I can't see my way out.
In order for you to apply that, you need to be in the right state of mind. And obviously, in order for us to be projected down into this low-level vibrational field and insulated from our source and insulated from a lot of areas, so we're in this. They wiped our memory. They wiped everything, and they're in control of the illusion. So imagine if they can wipe our memory and put us in these illusional fields, which I've been in many of them, and you can access your consciousness from at those points, then you are in more control than you ever were. But if you can't even get control of those, there's no way that you're ever going to be able to get out of the recycling mode. Because when people say, yeah, I'll just say no and stuff, you won't even be aware of what's going on. You will not even understand the level of manipulation that we are in. It's multi-level manipulation, and it's far beyond what people could even understand. It's even hard for me to understand when I've been going through it for decades. This stuff is next level stuff, and it's so hard to understand. And even when I go through it, I still struggle at times, even duplicating the methods I've used, because what happens is when I duplicate my methodology, so I'm learning, it also learns as well. The system will create new blockages and new resistance. So I have to, as I go along, I have to create different avenues. It's like you're on your path. The next thing you know, there's a roadblock. You know, there's a rock in the way, so you got to go walk around that. Yeah. So we're going against a system that is not only projecting this illusion and everything, it's also learning our avenues around it. Fortunately, with the portals, they're on a different level that I've been utilizing. So the portals are not necessarily going to be blocked because they weren't originally generated by me in the beginning. Those were not generated by me. I just learned how to duplicate them, to duplicate the connections.
Okay, but so we're still in a big bind, bro. We're
always going to be in this bind unless we get ourselves out of it. But the problem is first understanding. Okay, in order to really understand what I'm saying, you need to understand the situation that we're really in at a certain point. Now, when I say multi-level, you have your psychological programming that's on the physical level, you have your emotional and all those different levels, and you have the astral level, which is the spirit level. So at night, what you've come to know during the day, that information they're trying to prune that out of you, because on the subconscious level, your subconscious is actually working against your consciousness. And the reason why I came up with that whole idea in the reality of it is, as I realized my subconscious was having these connections and I brought my consciousness along, I found a way to do it. Then I'm like, why would my subconscious not allow me to access it? Why is that? And if you know from a lot of information you get from other people, you hear about the subconsciousness, you have your own experiences, you have your own dream experiences. And I've had enough to where I've documented all this, and I can put it together, and I can see there's a pattern. There's a pattern of us being the conscious part and the subconscious being part of the hive mind. So we're not that's not an individual. That's a community, a communal methodology, and we're the actual individual. So we are the separation, and the subconscious blocks your conscious mind because it does not want it to switch between your astral and your soul and that sort of thing. So it's a very convoluted, insulated, and really screwed up system. But the more you learn about it, the more you realize you don't know about it. So the more I learn, the more I realize.
So
I got so much
the
more
thing
to go.
that's happening is, bro, is that we're not giving people the answer they want to hear. We're not even giving the answer that maybe you and I even want to hear. But this is the brutal truth. And in order to escape from this full spectrum dominance octagon of a prison that we're in, we have to first accept that that's what we're in. And that the Roman Catholic Church didn't give us the answer. Islam didn't give us the answer. Judaism didn't give us the answer. None of these isms have given us the answer to escape the problem that we're in. And the challenge is, it seems to me the only way is to learn somehow, whatever it works, how it works. I'm not claiming I have the answer, but somehow we have to acquire our true sovereign selves, whatever that means. And I don't.
Well, we're already there. We already have ourselves. Our consciousness is with us all the time. And we decide, like I said, we decide if we're going to be in the game or not. We have to physically work at it. We have to mentally work at it. We have to emotionally and work at it. And once we, separate ourselves and then be in control of everything that we think or that we feel, so other people can't trigger us, then we get into the point where, okay, now that I have pretty much control of myself to a certain degree, then I become consciously aware of what's happening in my dreams, because the dream state is 8 to 10 hours or whatever, 6 to 10 hours of our lives. You don't want to throw that away by not being conscious in it, because what happens is then you're open to all this programming. And if you can't be in control of your dream state, then you'll never be in control of any other state that you're in, because what'll happen is they'll utilize that same state or a state similar to it when it comes down to it, and you just won't be in charge. You have to be mentally aware, and you have to be in mentally control 24/7. That's the only way that you're going to be able to even scratch the surface, to begin to scratch the surface.
But you and I have never been in that state.
We've all had the states of being lucid within a dream. We all have.
Yeah, but the lucid dream doesn't last all 8 hours, or
No, it doesn't last all 8 hours. No,
it doesn't even last 30 minutes. Well, if you're lucky, it could last 30 minutes or an hour, but most of the time we're talking something that's 5 minutes max.
What I found out is if I can access portals, then I can access whatever I need to. The problem is just you need to find a way, and nothing's laid out for us. There's no instructions. There's nothing that's going to happen. So the only way that we're going to get to that point is just constantly. I try every day. I work on stuff every single day. I go through. I write things down that I figured out, and to try to help myself and others, and then I put it to the test myself. That's the whole thing, and I understand. I don't dwell on the fact that there's a big job ahead of us, because I really don't care at this point. My only focus is finding a way through it, and that's what I do. I mean, that's my job, and I just go at it like 100% 24/7 drive, and that's exactly what I do every single day. I'm thinking about it, I'm working on it, I'm trying to find a way around it, and that's what I do.
This is a spiritual ninja. So yeah, you talk about source. So then what is source to you? Because most people would say that's God. But
It-
I find that dangerous. This whole God is just dog in reverse. And what is a
Right.
dog? What is a dog? It's led by on a leash.
Yeah, I don't put a name to it. I do know that we obviously came from somewhere, in a spirit energy source, and to me, I don't really,
Super force.
I don't concern myself with a lot of the shiny objects and things that I could think about, because I'm hyper focused on what I'm focused on. I really don't, right now, I really don't care about a lot of the other stuff. I'm working on one thing, and I've gotten good at a lot of things, but that doesn't put me in, that doesn't get me where I want to go. They're tools that I can utilize, but until I have the answer or the a methodology that we can utilize, then I'm not going to be happy with it, and that's for me. That's what I focus on. I really don't focus on a lot of other stuff, because I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of beings from other places. They manipulate things in order to make you feel, acceptable to them and that sort of thing. So all the beings that I've met throughout the decades and met with and listened to, there's no information even worth really passing on to, because it's just general information. It's like if they were to come out and say, hey, we'll help you find these missing children. You got 460,000 missing children in the United States every year. Let's help you do that. Or let's help you with free energy and stuff. No, none of them are focused on wanting to help us. Not one of them. Not one of them in 30 years really said, hey, let's go do this, or let's go do that, or this is going to help everybody out. Not going to happen. So all the angels or whatever you call them, the archons or whatever, or whoever, none of them are there to help us, because it's all, a devil and an angel could be the same being, just depending on what they want you to see at the time. They're all the same, beings in the astral. They're just portraying what you want to see, or what's going to benefit their relationship with you at the time. They're there to manipulate us. Like I said, we're in the prison. You go on the astral, it's the prison yard. They're just there as another level of manipulation. They call them their damage control. That way, if you get away from Earth, you're not going to learn anything, because they're going to be in control of what they tell you. It's like a lot of the psychics that are out there. They say, I have my spirit guide. Well, what's your spirit guide done to help anybody? I can guarantee you the answer is not a damn thing. They're going to tell you about all the drama. They're going to tell you about what grandma ate for freaking breakfast yesterday, whatever. But they're not going to help you, because they're not there to help. They're there to keep you in line, to keep you following the agenda. And that's why, I've had a lot of experience with psychics in the past and stuff like that. And not one of them I've ever met or ever talked to ever told me anything groundbreaking like, oh yeah, we got a way to free energy and we're going to make it tomorrow. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And, we found all these missing children.
Oh, that's been going on for how many decades now? Free energy.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
and especially these people that interact with these supposed aliens and stuff. The number of alien cults out there, it's just about it's about as growing as the number of different Christian sects out there.
Well, they're probably going to each other. Look at this idiot. I'm going to tell this idiot this. I bet you'll believe it. Oh yeah, they're going to believe it. They probably got a ton of stories. They're like, hey, let's go tell them this. They'll believe it. Oh yeah, they eat it up like candy. It's like you wouldn't believe some stranger off the street. Why would you believe these other beings? Only because they're not on this earth, you figure that they're trustworthy. They're not. There's nothing there. They're out looking for themselves. Every one of them's got their own agenda.
Yeah, we all do, but it all depends if that agenda is focused on reality, trying to find some truth. It's trying to find, like you said, I mean, that's a pretty noble quest in my book, escape. And although you're selling some books for a very modest price, I mean, they're not that expensive. They're like $3-4, something like that. That's not exactly you're going to make anything out of it. Not enough to, you might maybe, if you got lucky, maybe pay dinner for once a month out of it. So the fact of the matter, and I'm not making any money off this, the fact is, I know for me, my end, after 56 years, I'm at this point. It's just like, I know this. No one has the answer for it. No one else has the answer for me, at least. And I have listened to a whole bunch of other people claim they have. Meanwhile, they want you to, have you pay, a subscription every month and all this other nonsense, and in which all it's going to do is just confuse your head and just make you more and more confused. You're once again counting on something outside of yourself. And I think the smartest thing to do is just like it says, and in the Matrix, you're a slave, Nemo.
Right.
Literally.
Well, there's no money in answers. There's no money in solutions. There's only money in promoting fear and unrest and mocking what the media says. I mean, you're just following the agenda by just telling everybody what there is. I mean, what you do is you have to rely on yourself. But what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to tell you what you already know. You already know what's going on. I don't need to tell you anything. And you don't even need to believe me. That's up to you. It doesn't matter to me either way. But my thing is,
I hope you realize we're having a conversation and not challenging you. I'm trying to.
Right. No, I know. But my thing is I'm making the information available. If I get information, I pass it on. I don't hold anything to myself. I mean, the only reason I ever came out with this is I thought, you know what? There has to be a reason behind what I've experienced. So I'm going to put it out there. And if people want to take advantage of it, great. And when I get more information and I'm working on things, if I get it, then I'll pass it on to you. And when you read it or when you hear it, it might not make sense to you. And I completely understand that, because there was things that when I used to listen to things long before I ever got here, I didn't understand it. But then, I don't know, maybe a month or a year or a week or 3 years from now, I'm like, wow, I understand what they meant now. I didn't understand it before, but all of a sudden I understand it. Makes sense because I've experienced it. What I experienced before, I wasn't at that level, and now all of a sudden I understand what they meant. Now I understand it. So when I'm talking about this, I'm not saying I'm on a higher level than anybody else. I'm saying is,
well, you might be, because you're in a more honest. You're more honest about it. So there alone, I would say you're in a higher level.
Right. My
perspective, honesty is a rare.
Right.
So.
My perspective is different from everybody else's or somebody else's. So what happens is, so if I went to like a guy who was a bricklayer, I don't know how to lay bricks. I go up to the guy and he goes, yeah, let me show you how to do it. And then he does it. It's like, yeah, it looks easy. It's like Eddie Van Halen playing guitar. Well, that looks easy too, but I'm not a master at that. I could watch him all day. It doesn't mean I'm going to be as good as he is. Or I don't see, it's not the same perspective. So when I give you information, I'm giving you information from what I see and from what I've seen. It won't necessarily ring anything with you. It may down the line. So what I try to do in my books is I try to lay the information out and give examples so that you understand some background on it. So maybe you'll better understand it. And then when you get to a certain point, you might go, wow, now it kind of opened up for me. I understand what that meant. And so that's why I'm constantly trying to reword things and rewrite things so that maybe more people will have the ability to see it from my perspective or better see it from their perspective. I'm not here to sell anybody snake oil. I'm not here to sell books. I'm here for information. The same information I have in my books, I say it on the podcast. But sometimes it's easier to read it in a book, because if you listen to a podcast, you might not remember it by the end of the podcast, or keep watching the podcast or whatever. So I lay the information out. The first book is basically about my experiences, my portals, the gateways, the astral, my experiences. The second one goes into the Spiritualist Manifesto, which basically lays out the beginning of disconnecting yourself from the game and how things are working. And I have another book that I'm probably going to come out with the next couple of weeks that goes on from there. So as I get more information and I discover more, I release it so people can benefit from it. I mean, I think the lowest I can charge for a book on Amazon is $2.99. I think my prices are $2.99 or $3.99, something like that. I don't remember what it was when I put it on there. but the whole purpose of it is to help people. I don't want to do this long term. That was never my intention. I don't want to come out with a book and be on a podcast, come out with a book. That's what everybody does.
I know. Who wants to be the next guru? What a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't want to be anybody's guru. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. I don't want anybody to tell me what to do, and I don't want to tell anybody else what to do. My thing is make the information available. The ones who want to utilize it can. They have questions. I'm always open to questions. You can message me off my my Rumble channel or got plenty of different ways to contact me. And if somebody does message me, that I will answer them. I'm good about that, because the worst thing you can do is make information available and then never answer anybody. They got 15 levels of admins below them, and you'll never get to that person. Yep. So yeah, it's very frustrating. And if you need an answer, sometimes you need it right away. You can't wait 6 months, and then by the time you get the answer, you're like, I'm way past that. I've been to frustration. I've been beyond frustration. I know how it is.
It's absolutely this big part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can find Mike's if you want to contact him there on his Facebook page, My Dark Exploration. Like he said, he has the
my Out on the Rumble page has my email address.
Yeah.
You can make comments on my videos. I will respond to it. I'm available to people, and I'm not in it for the money or the showmanship or anything. I'm in it just to help. If people are benefiting from it, great. If people aren't benefiting from it, then there's no reason for me to even do it.
It's Mike. I have enjoyed it. I hope it's been. I'm sure anybody who listens to this has been hit over the head for an hour and some minutes, and their head spinning, and they're going, "Yeah, but what? This and that." And you should be aware of that. On my book, and just realize that we're all after the same. Many of us, at some point in our lives, will be after the same. Answers, or searching for the same answers, or have the same questions, same journey, and that's somehow to escape the madness that we have been ensnared in, and that really, in the end of the day, the only person that's ever going to solve this is you, are individually our own journey, and
we have to solve it for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's the riddle. That's the big riddle.
But you also need the information, because there's a lot of misinformation out there that'll just keep leading you on paths that you don't want to go on, that it's not going to get you anywhere. And that's why I decided to speak out, because I'm like, I think what's worse than not giving people information, giving them misinformation, because then you're sticking them on a path that wastes all these years and years following this path, and it just leads to a cliff, and you just fall off at the end. I do know. Yeah.
And I don't want to be that person either about just pushing misinformation. And we're all full of that in one way or another. So, but I really enjoyed this conversation. I want to keep this short because I want people to hear this, because I think it's a stepping stone in the right direction. I do appreciate you, Mike. I know you and I really don't know each other outside of this evening. And I hope that we have a part two, because I enjoyed this conversation, and I think it's an important conversation. And for the rest of you, check out his stuff. And hey, if you truly have some answers to the quest and the questions, not just barfing out shit, and not just, this is what somebody else told me. And because that's what so many people are doing, Mike. They're just regurgitating. I'm at this point, man, I'm just like, you know what? All I know is I don't like this place. I don't want to be part of this place. I'm not conforming anymore. I'm going to go on my own journey. So with that, Mike, thank you for joining us. With that, I'm going to end unless you got any last statements. I have to go use the restroom.
Yeah, so do I.
That's because we're getting older, man. So anyways, end of the stream, man. Everyone take care. Michael L. Martin, once again.